everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kenzie and today we have part 5 of our book club started by Laura from What Laura Likes. We are talking about Morality and Destiny, which is the title of the 5th section of the book Why We Are Catholic by Trent Horn. This was one of my favorite sections of the entire book as it covered two topics that are extra near and dear to my heart, which are why Catholics are pro-life and also why Catholics have the view of marriage and sexuality the way they do. And it's difficult because all of these topics are so big, I don't think just one video could summarize the entire thing. But the pro-life movement has been on my heart and my mind quite a bit recently, so I figured I would talk about that a little bit. The Catholic Church teaches that human life begins at the moment of conception and ends at the time of natural death. And that is my belief, and partly why I'm Catholic. Lately, I've seen a lot of posts going around on my Facebook feed because in my state, a new bill was passed called the Heartbeat Bill. And basically what this bill does is it makes it illegal to perform an abortion after the fetal heartbeat is detected, which is typically about 6 weeks. When I heard this bill passed, I thought, oh, okay, this is fair. I mean, obviously, I think human life begins a lot sooner than 6 weeks after human life begins, but hey, this is a step forward. This is a step in the right direction. Clearly, a being with a heart that beats, you can't argue that that's not a human life, right? But as I saw on a lot of Facebook comments, that is not the popular view or a view of very many people. In the words of my teenage sister, I was shook. So I'm reading these comments. I have been extremely surprised and sad. Arguments on Facebook don't do all that much, but when it comes to the matter of abortion and being pro-life, I just can't hold back sometimes when I see these comments. I just feel like people are so far from the truth that I just have to put it out there, even though I know they probably aren't receptive to it and they probably don't care, and my little Facebook comment might not do much. I just have to let people know the reason that the church teaches what it does, the reason that life is so precious and beautiful and sacred. And for today's video, I wanted to share with you just a few things that I had said in some responses to people on these Facebook posts. In the first post that I'm thinking of, I can't even share with you what the pro-choice person commented initially because it was filled with swear words. And if somebody has to go around dropping F-bombs and being nasty, I don't have too much interest in getting into any kind of a dialogue because this person is clearly not open to discussion and they're just angry and caught up in their anger. But one of the things this person was saying to the original poster, who happened to be a man, was that he had no opinion on the matter and it was none of his business. And that bothers me so much. Of course, having been pregnant myself a few times, I understand that as a woman, you take on a whole different role than a man does once the child is being formed. I mean, you carry them in your body and it takes up your energy, your nutrients, just every bit of you is nourishing this child, and it's definitely difficult. I guess to me, it's a human rights issue, not a women's rights issue, because a human is a human. Gender is irrelevant in this whole discussion. It's completely unfair to say that somebody else's opinion doesn't matter just because of their gender. And it's funny because the same people who sit there fighting for gender-neutral bathrooms and being able to change your gender whenever you feel like that's not the right gender you were born in are typically, now I know that's a generalization, but typically those same people also say that men can't have any say on the topic of abortion. So I think if we leave men out of the conversation, that is just as oppressive as leaving women out of certain conversations. Okay, moving on because I could talk about this stuff for hours. Another friend of mine had posted and a commenter asked, well, when does life begin? Does it begin at implantation or at conception or once there's a fetal heartbeat and yada, 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 yada? it's so interesting because when this topic comes up, people love to say, well, what if human life begins when the heartbeat is detected, or when this happens, or when this happens? And it's like, why are we all hung up and trying to figure out the furthest we can go along in the time span of human development to make it acceptable and okay to kill this being? And it's funny now that I think about it in relation to Trent Horn's book and these chapters, the way that people act when it comes to when is the furthest we can go in order to terminate a pregnancy is very reminiscent of when people are dating and they say, well, how far can we go? What is the farthest we can go as a couple before we're married that we can justify this and that this is okay? And to me, I think if you are having to ask that question to try to justify something, you've probably already gone too far down the spectrum in both cases. And I think instead of trying to figure out, well, what's the farthest we can push this? What's the farthest we can justify this? Why don't we take a step back and embrace what is there? So yeah, I just think it's interesting that people get so hung up on trying to figure out when life begins. If you are pregnant, the life has begun, because you can't end a life if it wasn't there to begin with. So any way you slice it, you're ending a human life. And that's pretty much something that can't be argued very much. So then the matter comes in, okay, well, we have this life, but you know what? What if the parents are terribly unstable? We don't want to bring a child into the world who is going to be living in a very unstable environment, or have parents who are cruel. And, abortion would eliminate that happening. And I guess a similar thing comes to mind. Why are we so focused on thinking, uh-oh, we might have a child who will be brought into the world in a terrible situation. Let's get rid of it. Let's kill it. Instead of saying, you know what? There are children who are brought into the world in these horrible situations. How can we find better ways to give them stable, loving homes? How can we find better solutions to embracing pregnant women in crisis situations, or who come from a certain area where they don't have a lot of money, or maybe they have an abusive boyfriend and all of this stuff is going on? How can we better minister to them? How can we embrace the children that do come, instead of feeling like we either have the kids or we don't? So again, this video is too short to encompass all of the many reasons that I personally find abortion to be absolutely wrong and immoral. However, I wanted to share the thoughts that had kind of been coming up recently. The whole thing really is so sad, especially for someone like me who has had a miscarriage in the past. Just knowing how valuable and beautiful life is, and that even when you desire to have a baby, you can't control that. And that's what's missing from a lot of people. They think that everything needs to be in our control, and that's just not reality. It'd be cool if we could control everything in our lives, but reality is that we cannot, and it is in God's hands whether a life is born or not. And so when people are trying to justify ending this human life because they're saying it is their choice, their decision, because it's their life, their happiness on the line, it's just extremely heartbreaking. And it's such a huge lie, and person after person after person believes it. I mean, people do this and then they regret it for years. I mean, that regret is just so painful to watch in people that I've met and that I know. And just, if there's anything that you get from this video, if there's anything that you ever get from me that I just wish the whole world would know, is that these things that are taught by the church are not meant to limit us, to prevent us from happiness, to make our lives boring, to be anti-fun, whatever. they're here to help us. Nobody wants to listen to that. You know, when we follow these things, that's where we're getting peace and joy from. And we wonder why everybody is depressed, everybody has anxiety and is on some sort of medication. But then we don't listen to anything that the church teaches because that is old school, that doesn't apply to me. And then we wonder why we're sad and miserable and have all these issues. Bottom line, the church supports and values the sanctity and dignity of human life. And all these teachings that a lot of people misunderstand and disagree with, involving marriage and sexuality, are all there for a reason, for our benefit. And that's what I love so much about our faith, that it's something that you can actually see how it benefits you if you follow church teachings, Christ's teachings, and it's an amazing source of joy in my life, obviously in the lives of millions of others. So again, those are just a few thoughts that just briefly touch these ginormous topics, but thank you, Laura, for including me in this book club. It has been really great to be reading the book and hearing and having discussions with some of the other people in the collaboration. Check out their channels below if you're interested to hear what the other collaborators have to say, and hopefully we will do another book club in the future because this one has been so much fun. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a wonderful week, everybody.